The arrival. In the year 2257, Earth was a wasteland. Centuries of total war, rampant industrial pollution, and runaway climate change had boiled the oceans and turned the sky to ash. The last remnants of humanity lived deep underground in fortified bunkers, relying on advanced hydroponic farms, generators, and water reclaimers to survive. They had adapted to the brutal hellscape above, a place so inhospitable that any alien who set foot on Earth died instantly, their organs liquefying in the planet's toxic atmosphere. Rear, a young scavenger, trudged through the toxic sludge that covered the Earth's surface. His red-breather mask fogged with each breath in the chokingly humid air. He carried a blocky scanner, sweeping it across the tortured landscape of twisted metal wreckage and skeletal remains of long-dead cities under a sickly green sky. The scanner pinged. Rear glanced down at the flickering screen. A new signal, potential salvage. He hefted his plasma rifle and altered course. After an hour of slogging through the poisonous muck, he reached the source of the signal and froze, eyes widening behind his mask. An alien ship lay half-buried in the mud, its sleek, angular hull made of strange alloys that shimmered despite the crud smeared across its surface. Rear approached cautiously, rifle at the ready. He reached a gaping hole torn in the ship's side and peered into the murky darkness within. Emergency lights flickered, and a strange acrid stench wafted out. Steadying himself, he flicked on the rifle's flashlight and stepped inside, his boots splashing in puddles of viscous ooze coating the deck. He recoiled in horror at what he saw, partially melted flesh tangled with strands of shredded clothing. Jesus, Rear breathed, realizing what he was looking at. Aliens, dead ones, dissolved into putrid slime. By the remnants of clothing, he counted 3 bodies, or what was left of them. Trembling, he backed out of the ship and fumbled for his radio. Baseplate, this is Rear. Over. After a burst of static, a gruff voice answered. Copy. Rear, go ahead. I found a ship. An alien ship. The crew. They're all dead. Looks recent. A long pause. Stay where you are. Hazmat teams inbound. We'll take it from here. But what do you think killed them? Maintain radio silence. That's an order. Out. Rear stared at the radio and then at the ship. Morbid curiosity warred with the deeply ingrained obedience beaten into him since birth by the bunker overseers. Curiosity won. He had to know what killed these aliens and what secrets their strange technology might hold. Casting furtive glances back at the toxic fog bank, obscuring the direction of his home bunker, Rear pulled a multi-tool from his belt and approached a bulkhead leading deeper into the ship. The mystery called to him. He would find answers, orders be damned. Earth's toxic hellscape had killed the aliens. He needed to know how. The intruders. Rear crouched in the shadow of a rusted metal structure, his eyes fixed on the sickly green sky. He knew they were coming, the aliens. His scanner had picked up their ships entering the atmosphere minutes ago. He checked his rifle again, though he knew there would be no need to use it. The environment would kill the aliens for him, just like it had killed the crew of that first ship. Suddenly, a deep rumble filled the air, growing steadily louder. Rear watched as a formation of sleek ships, much larger than the scout vessel, punched through the ash clouds, their hulls glinting in the dim, poisonous light. Idiots, Rear muttered to himself. Why didn't you stay away? He knew why. The transmission. The warning signal. The bunker had sent it to the aliens as soon as they detected the incoming ships. Rear had argued against it, saying it was a waste of time. They won't listen, he had told the overseer. They think they can take whatever they want. The overseer had just stared at him with cold eyes. Then their deaths will be on their own heads. Rear shook his head, focusing back on the present. The ships were descending rapidly, landing struts extending from their bellies. They settled onto the broken, toxic earth, kicking up clouds of ash and dust. Hatches hissed open, and ramps extended. Rear raised his rifle scope to his eye, peering at the aliens as they emerged. They wore bulky environment suits loaded with tanks and hoses. Their leader, a tall reptilian creature, strode down the ramp first, a large rifle clutched in his claws. "Commander Thur," Rear whispered, remembering the name from the alien transmissions. Thur gestured to his soldiers, barking orders in a hissing, clicking language. They fanned out, moving away from the ships, scanners and weapons at the ready. Rear felt a twinge of pity. They had no idea what was coming. It started slowly. One of the aliens stumbled, dropping his scanner. He collapsed to his knees, clawing at his helmet. Others began to falter, some trying to turn back to the ships. Thur wheeled around, confusion and anger in his body language. He shouted at his soldiers, trying to rally them. But then he too fell, his rifle clattering to the ground. Rear watched grimly as the aliens convulsed and thrashed, just like the crew of the first ship. Suits ruptured, and flesh began to dissolve, the horrific process hidden by swirling clouds of toxic dust. In minutes, it was over. The expedition force lay dead, their bodies melting into the earth. The ships stood silent and empty, monuments to the aliens' folly. Rear stood, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. He walked slowly toward the landing site, picking his way through the puddles of liquefied remains. He had seen death before, but this was something else, something terrible. He reached the base of Thur's ship and looked up at it, feeling a mix of awe and revulsion. So much power, so much advanced technology, and yet it meant nothing here on broken Earth. Everyone was equal in death. Rear turned away, tapping his radio. "Baseplate, it's Rear. The aliens, they're all dead. Their ships are abandoned." The radio crackled. "Confirmed. Rear. Hazmat teams are en route. Secure the site and await further orders." "Copy that." Rear looked back at the ship, his mind racing. The secrets it held, the technology and knowledge. It was all there for the taking if he could just get inside. But the risk was too great. The overseers would surely hunt him down. And besides, what was the point? The aliens were dead. Earth had killed them, just as it would kill any other invaders. Rear unslung his rifle and took up a guard position near the ship's ramp. He would do his duty and await the hazmat teams. But a part of him, the curious, rebellious part, still longed to uncover the mysteries the aliens had brought with them. Mysteries that had died with them on the lethal surface of Earth, toxic and unconquered. A death world that guarded its secrets jealously. Rear knew he might spend his whole life wondering what lay inside that ship. But for now, he had a job to do. He settled in to wait, watching the swirling ash cloud and the melted remains of the aliens, grim reminders of the price of trespassing on a planet that belonged only to the hardy survivors of the human race and the poisons they had unleashed. The galactic response. In the echoing halls of the Galactic Confederation's headquarters, the council members sat in stunned silence as the reports from Earth trickled in. Commander Thur and his soldiers were dead, killed by the very planet they sought to claim. "This cannot stand," Ambassador Zax declared, slamming his fist on the table. "Earth poses a clear and present danger to the Confederation. It must be quarantined immediately." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. The council voted swiftly and unanimously. Earth was to be declared off-limits, a forbidden world. No further contact would be permitted. But not all were content with this decision. In the shadowed corners of the Confederation, a ruthless warlord named Kerox saw opportunity where others saw only danger. A planet that kills all who set foot upon it. He mused, his eyes glinting with malice. The perfect weapon. Kerox envisioned armies of humans, their bodies weaponized by the very toxins that had made their world uninhabitable, unleashed upon his enemies. He would be unstoppable. Quietly, he gathered a team of mercenaries, the most vicious and cunning in the galaxy. They met in secret, poring over the scant data on Earth and its defenses. "The humans will not give up their secrets easily," Kerox warned, "but they are primitive, weak. We will crush them and take what we need." As Karax plotted on Earth, Rear sat hunched over a makeshift console deep in the bowels of his bunker. His eyes flicked over the screens, scanning the data streaming in from the sensors he had scattered across the planet's surface. A flashing red light caught his attention, and he leaned forward, his heart pounding. A ship approaching fast. No, not just one. A dozen, maybe. Frantically refined the sensors, trying to glean more information. The ships were heavily armed, their hulls bristling with weapons. They were being careful, staying just outside the range of Earth's automated defenses. Rear felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at the screen. Whoever these aliens were, they weren't here for a friendly visit. He had to warn the others. Rear sprinted through the bunker corridors, ignoring the startled looks from his fellow scavengers. He burst into the Overseer's chamber, gasping for breath. "Sir, we have a situation," Rear managed to say between gulps of air. "Alien ships inbound. A lot of them. And they're not friendlies." The Overseer, a grizzled veteran of Earth's wars, narrowed his eyes. "Show me." Rear led him back to the console and pointed at the screens. The Overseer's face hardened as he took in the data. "So, they're coming for us," he growled. "They think they can take what they want, just like all the others before them." He turned to Rear, his expression grim. "Sound the alarm. We need to evacuate the civilians to the deep bunkers and get every able-bodied fighter to the armories." Rear nodded, his heart pounding. He had trained for this day, like all the youth in the bunkers, but he had never thought it would actually come. As alarms blared and soldiers rushed to prepare for battle, Rear couldn't shake the sense of dread that settled over him. The aliens were coming, and they had no idea what horrors Earth had in store for them. But neither, Rear feared, did the humans know what terrible plans the aliens had for them. All he could do was ready his rifle and pray that Earth's lethal environment would once again prove humanity's greatest ally. High above, Karax's ships sliced through the ash-choked skies, drawing ever closer to their target. The warlord smiled, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light of the bridge. "Prepare the containment units," he ordered. "I want the first specimen secured within the hour." His mercenaries nodded, their expressions hungry. They were ready for the hunt. On Earth, Rear stepped out onto the planet's blasted surface, his breath fogging in his rebreather mask. He joined the line of soldiers taking up defensive positions, their weapons trained on the sickly green sky. They waited, hearts pounding, as the ominous silhouettes of the alien ships grew larger and larger. Rear's finger tightened on his rifle's trigger as he whispered a silent prayer to whatever gods might still listen to humanity's pleas. "Come on, you bastards," he muttered. "Come and see what Earth has waiting for you." The ships descended, their hulls glinting in the poisonous light. The final battle for Earth and its secrets was about to begin. The battle begins. Karax's mercenaries descended through the toxic clouds, their ships' hulls shimmering in the poisonous light as they touched down on the cracked, blasted Earth. Hatches hissed open, and armored figures emerged, weapons at the ready. They moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, fanning out to secure the landing site. But the humans were ready for them. From the rubble of long-dead cities and the twisted wreckage of ancient war machines, the defenders of Earth emerged. They wore patchwork armor and carried battered weapons, but their eyes burned with fierce determination. At their head was Rear, his face grim behind his rebreather mask. He had prepared for this moment, drilled his soldiers relentlessly. They knew every inch of this broken landscape, every hidden danger. "Remember the plan," Rear growled over the comm. "Draw them in. Let the environment do its work. And when they're weak, we strike." The humans melted back into the ruins, disappearing like ghosts. Karax's mercenaries advanced, scanning for targets, but there was nothing. Only the eerie stillness of the dead planet. And then it began. A mercenary stumbled, clutching at his throat. His comrades wheeled around, searching for the attacker, but there was no one. The man collapsed, convulsing as his flesh began to blister and dissolve. More fell, choking and writhing as the very air they breathed turned against them. Their armor, designed for combat, not this hellish environment, offered no protection. In the chaos, Rear and his team struck. They emerged from the shadows, firing with deadly precision. Mercenaries fell, their high-tech weapons useless against an enemy they couldn't see. Rear pressed forward, his soldiers fanning out behind him. They fought their way through the disintegrating remnants of Karax's force. Toward the warlord's ship, a hulking figure loomed out of the toxic haze, a massive gun in his hands. Karax, his armor more robust than his soldiers. He fired, the bolt sizzling past Rear's head. Rear dropped to one knee, bringing up his rifle. The two adversaries faced each other, weapons locked. "You think you've won?" Karax snarled, his voice distorted by his helmet. "I'll burn this planet to ash before I let you savages have it." Rear smiled coldly. "You still don't get it, do you? It's not us you're fighting. It's Earth itself." He gestured to the fallen mercenaries, their bodies dissolving into the poisoned ground. "This planet, our home, is death to your kind. And we're its guardians." Karax roared in rage and charge, firing wildly. Rear rolled to the side, coming up in a crouch. He fired, the pulse of his rifle stitching across Karax's armor, breaching the plates. The warlord stumbled, toxic air hissing into his suit. He fell to his knees, clawing at his helmet, trying desperately to seal the breach. But it was too late. Rear watched grimly as Karax convulsed, his body going into spasms as the planet's lethal atmosphere did its work. In moments, it was over. The once mighty warlord was nothing more than a puddle of liquefied flesh and shattered armor. Rear turned to his soldiers, triumph and exhaustion etched in equal measure on his face. "Signal the bunkers. Tell them it's over. We've won." The aftermath. In the days that followed, the human resistance swept the planet, rounding up the few surviving mercenaries. They offered a simple choice: surrender or die. Most chose the former. As the dust settled, communication channels crackled to life. The Galactic Confederation, shaken by Karax's rogue actions and the evidence of Earth's lethality, offered a tentative hand of diplomacy. Rear, hailed as a hero by his people, stepped forward to meet their envoys. No longer a mere scavenger, he found himself taking on the mantle of ambassador. In the grand chambers of the Confederation's capital, Rear stood tall, his scavenged armor replaced by a simple, clean uniform. He faced the assembled dignitaries, his voice clear and strong. "Earth is not your plaything," he declared. "We will not be conquered, exploited, or collected. We are a sovereign world, and we demand to be treated as such." There were murmurs of assent, nods of respect. The Confederation, cowed by their loss and the display of human resilience, had little choice but to agree. As the negotiations wore on, Rear thought of his planet, his people. They had survived the worst the universe could throw at them, from their own folly to the greed of others. And now, finally, they had a chance at something more. Not just survival, but a future. Rear looked to the stars, to the infinite possibilities that lay beyond. Earth would be a part of that future, he vowed. No longer a poisoned, quarantined backwater, but a power in its own right. He would make sure of it, whatever the cost. For he was Rear, the defender of Earth, the ambassador of a world that had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. And he was just getting started. A new dawn. The new dawn for Earth began with cautious optimism. The Confederation, now wary of Earth's lethal environment and the resilience of its people, moved to establish formal relations. Diplomatic envoys were exchanged, and trade agreements were tentatively drawn up. Earth's unique position as a planet of extreme conditions made it a valuable, albeit dangerous, asset. Rear, now officially appointed as Earth's ambassador, worked tirelessly to ensure that his people's interests were protected. He traveled to various worlds, meeting with leaders and officials, always carrying the message that Earth was not to be underestimated or exploited. Back on Earth, the reconstruction efforts began in earnest. The bunkers, once purely survivalist fortresses, started transforming into centers of learning and innovation. The human spirit of ingenuity and determination was unleashed, fueled by the desire to rebuild and thrive. One of the first projects was the development of a new generation of environmental suits, designed not only to withstand Earth's harsh conditions, but also to explore other worlds. These suits, combining human technology with salvaged alien tech, became symbols of humanity's adaptability and resourcefulness. As Earth's people ventured out into the galaxy, they carried with them the lessons learned from their harsh home. They became known for their resilience and ingenuity, and their reputation grew. The phrase "tough as a Terran" became a compliment in many parts of the galaxy. More,